Juan, are you concerned right now about the lack of experience of linebacker, or is that still to be determined that things could happen over the next week that could change that?
You know, I mean, you know me throughout the years. I mean, everybody needs a first chance. You know, I mean, you got your first chance. You know, somebody gave you your chance to do it, and I'm sure people thought that you weren't experienced enough. And look at how many years later, look at where you're at.
102.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, that's the way I feel about things. You know, we're teachers. I mean, that's why Coach Reed hired, you know, that's why the defensive staff, they're all teachers. And so that we feel that wherever we have, Coach Reed and Howie do a great job getting us our guys, and shoot, they're going to play. They're going to be good football players.
Juan, with the wide nine technique, how does the role of linebacker change in your team?
Well, you know what? Football is a gap control, I mean, that scheme. Really, all that means is the linebackers have the C gap instead of maybe having the D gap. So it's not as big a thing, you know. I think what it does is helps them on play passes, helps the defensive end. I mean, we're going to attack.
Is it going to be more read and react? Is it going to be more you want them to go downhill before the snap?
We're going to attack. You know, we're going to attack and get up the field.
How tough is it to implement your defense without Asante, without Dominic Rogers-Kamari being here yet? You might have some other parts coming later.
Well, you know what? I think the important thing is that people get hurt during the season. I mean, during the season, it may be like that. So I think it's a great opportunity for the young kids to get some good work.
With you doing what you want to do up front with your, you said defensive line attack, and what is Dominic Rogers-Kamari going to do for you to help complement that?
Well, you know what? He's a very good football player. You know, he's tall. He's very athletic. He makes plays, turnovers. Turnovers always been a big thing for the Philadelphia Eagle defense back with Jim Johnson, and then he's done a good job with that. And he's a shutdown corner.
Does Marlon Jackson seem healed? Does he look fluid running to you?
You know, it's just nice to see him out there practicing. You know, he does. I mean, he's an athlete. You know, he's a good football player. It's exciting for us.
What about Nate? Yeah, I mean, he said he was 90, 95. Do you see him? He said he was worried a little bit about hesitating to see what it was like.
But you know what? It's just nice. You know what's great is just seeing our guys back out here. You know, it's awesome just seeing all the guys. And Nate's one of the guys. I mean, he's ready to go. I think if it was up to him, he'd be going full speed right now the whole time, and he's moving around pretty well.
What has Casey been able to show you so far?
You know what? He's a leader. He's a natural leader. He has the it. Smart. I mean, we put in quite a bit of defense already, and really he was the one that was calling the shots yesterday. And you know, we signaled the fronts and the coverages in practice. So pretty smart guy. You know, and when we put on the pads, we'll improve the fundamentals. So I think what you all have to understand is that on defense, well, we're teachers. And then every day we're going to get better at certain things. Every coach has what we call it a daily must, something that they're going to work on every day that they're going to improve. It's not like when we put on the pads, everybody's going to be like the way they're going to look like when the season opens. That's every day we're going to get a little bit better. We're going to take it a practice at a time. That's what Coach Reed preaches, and you're used to hearing him say that, and that's what we're going to do on defense.
He said he didn't get the play plan yesterday, you know, so by that account, would you say he's ahead of where he should be?
Oh, yes.
Can a defense get its leadership from a rookie, or do you need a veteran somewhere down the line to step up and show?
You know what? Here's the thing is, when you look at that, is that he's the one calling the plays. He's the one that's giving out. So he has to be a leader in the huddle. That presence in the huddle. You know, once they break the huddle, then, you know, Asante Samuels, man, and Trent Cole, those are our leaders, man. Everybody knows those are our guys, you know. And so, but in the huddle, he's the guy. He's the guy that controls it. He's the one that's going to make sure that everybody gets the call. When the huddle breaks, he's going to make sure that everybody gets lined up. But, man, Asante Samuels, Trent Cole, those are our leaders, man. Those are the guys that have proven themselves throughout the years.
One, seems like good guys. You talk about the daily must. You have a lot of guys doing a lot of real fundamental stuff today. Is that because you didn't have mini camp coming in here, or is that because you really want to go back to those fundamentals and improve on that from last year?
You know what? I know this is that what you do is you always preach and you work fundamentals. If we want to be good at something, if you want to be a good tackling team, what do you have to do in practice? Tackle. You know, defensive linemen and you want to get off the football, just like what Coach Bosch is doing, they're going to practice getting off the football. Linebackers, you know, you talk about being able to use their hand. Well, what do you got to do in practice? Use their hands. All right, they got to be able to take on offensive linemen. They're trying to cut them. You saw that today. We're working on cut drills. Those are things that are going to be worked every day. Defensive backs, corners, they got to be able to plant, stab, and drive. Well, what are they going to do in practice? That's what they're going to work on. All right, safeties, they got to be able to open their hips. You see that they got to have hips. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on the hips. And then that's what we're going to do every day. So when things, you know and I know that sometimes things, okay, maybe you don't play as well. Well, you know what happens? You work those fundamentals, because if you keep working those fundamentals, you just keep getting better and better and better. You just got to have a plan, and the guys will believe that. So when something happens, if they don't do something correctly, we go right back to the fundamentals. They'll get better, and we play better.
Well, you got Casey Matthews taking most of the reps at Mike. I mean, right now, do you envision him as your #1?
Well, you know what? He's here right now, so he's our Mike linebacker, and has done a good job.
How's the adjustment been for you over the first couple of days at Union Post?
You know what? I think early, you know, when I became the defensive coordinator, I was always preaching that. Well, I'm a defensive guy. Really what I am is a teacher. You know, so I mean, I can go coach, you know, D-line, linebacker, DB, O-line, whatever, because, you know, I'm a teacher. I mean, that's the way, that's what Coach Reed wants from his staff, you know, and that's what, we're all teachers. We all could go and teach positions. We have to study and learn them, but we're teachers.
Speaking of which, you were over watching Jim Washburn go through things with the D linemen there early in the practice. What did you see from him? What did you see him doing today that,
you know, what Jim is teaching the guys is he's teaching them to attack and get up the field. That's very important. It's not as natural as you think sometimes. And then, you know, those are the things that he's working on, trying to get the guys to get up the field, attack and then react.
Well, are the basic techniques that he's teaching different than what they've had in the past?
You know what it is, Mero, is that we're attacking up the field on first and second down instead of just when it's a passing down.
Juan, your personality as a defensive coordinator is a little bit different than Sean's. I know you're slightly more vocal and profane.
Profane.
Use the F word a few times.
I'm sorry. You know, sometimes I'm sorry. I don't know that I do. You know, you don't really know that.
You and Sean seem to be two different kind of people. I mean, that's just your style, right?
You know, I was a linebacker. You know, you're a linebacker. I mean, it's different. You know, and I think that the thing for me is I just want to be myself. You know, and I want our guys to play hard and know that, you know what, it's our job to make them better. When they make a mistake, you know, we have to work those fundamentals to get them better. I mean, that's the way it is. And if they don't do it right, that's my fault. I mean, that's my responsibility. So what you're going to see is, you're going to see fundamentals on the field, because that's the key to me. Those fundamentals are the key.
Where do you have Jamar Chaney lined up during camp, and what does he need to do to build on his rookie season?
Hey, Jamar, man, he can line up wherever he wants, man. He's a good football player, but right now we have him lined up at Sam.
Well, he seemed to really work hard in the offseason. He was around South Jersey. He seemed to kept in good shape. Do you think he's ready to take a step forward here?
Yes, Les. I mean, he really, you know what, out there right now, I mean, he's one of him and Moser is one of our older kids, you know. So yeah, he's taking on a good role. He's playing a key position for us. That Sam position is a key position for us, and he's doing a good job. And you can see that he worked hard. A lot of our guys worked hard. You can see that our guys did a good job of training and preparing, and they're excited. I think you'll see that this afternoon in the practice. It's hard to prepare yourself for football, you know, unless you're doing football. But the best thing you can do is train, and they work their ass off.
You mentioned Asante as he and Trent Cole were your defensive leaders. You don't have Asante. How critical is it to get him in here quickly?
Well, you know, that's a personal matter, Les. And like I said, you know, the good thing about, I mean, there's really never a good thing, but you always have to know as a leader is that when things happen, you got to get the positive things. All right, to me now, that allows somebody else to step up. All right, now that allows who in the secondary? Is it Nate? Who's going to take over? Is it who is it going to be? Who's going to be the leader when Asante's not here? Because you know all the energy that Asante brings.
Juan, what kind of impact do you think Asante will have on Roger Cromartie being a young and up-and-coming cornerback in his own right?
The thing about Asante, and I mentioned this about Trent too, is, you know, people talk about playmakers, you know. Let's remember, Trent Cole got drafted in the 5th round, and he's one of the premier pass rushers. Asante Samuels got drafted in the 4th round. All right, and he's a premier corner. So what that tells you is that, you know what, if you work your butt out, just like Asante does before practice, after practice, study, that you can be the best. And that's what we're trying to preach to all our guys. Let's work hard, and then instead of having one playmaker, 2 playmakers, let's have 11 playmakers. Why not? Because Asante wasn't a first-round draft pick. Trent wasn't a first-round draft pick. What did they do? They worked their ass off to be the best.
When you talk about leaders and getting new leaders, I mean, do you go to guys and say, I want you to be more vocal, this is going to be your role, or do you just kind of let that happen naturally?
I think it ends up happening naturally. I think for the Mike linebacker, it's important his presence in the huddle. There's a certain command that Coach Reed wants with that Mike linebacker. I mean, he wants a certain presence with that Mike linebacker in the huddle. All right, so there we can coach him up on that. You know, there's kids. You know what's interesting is that some of y'all may have people that work under you. That a lot of times all you got to do to guys is tell them what you want, and most of the guys are gonna do what you want. But if you don't tell them what you want, then they don't know what you want. So I think that's important.
Okay. Thanks, guys.